Good evening, TNT family. We are here with our MP for Caron East, and I believe you're also Shadow Minister for Ministry of Planning, MP Seecheran.
Yes, Shadow for Planning, Ministry of Planning and Development, as well as Shadow for Health.
So we want to thank you very much for taking the time. It's been a long haul just to get you in here because I know you've been so busy with so many things.
Yeah.
So I deeply appreciate you taking the time to come here and enlighten us a little bit on what you saw taking place in the country with the budget, with previous budget. We outside here, and there's broadcasters reaching out people inside and outside the country, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So I saw some things happening during the budget, MP, where there seems to be a lack of transparency. We don't see where the money is going. I think I was convinced by Senator West that maybe this government performance is in the cloud and the money is in the cloud because we don't see it on the ground.
Right.
We've seen the chaos in the healthcare sector, which you brought forth in the parliament. I mean, you are personally dealing with it in your constituency. But tonight, I want to give a little uh, preference to your constituency first,
Hmm.
as to what's taking place with you, the things that you are dealing with. I want to give some preference to that. So if you could start off by telling us the kind of things that you're dealing with. We saw recently also the police officer, I believe she's in your constituency, that was recently killed on her way from the airport. And that's a major concern for us. Not even the police is safe, So, I mean, this government seems to be a threat to our security, in many ways, whether it's food security, national security, health security. So I would like to give you an opportunity to start off by telling us what's going on in your constituency.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary, for having me. I was supposed to be on probably at least 2 or 3 weeks now, but because of the budget, I was unable to do so. Um, and Caroni is, as I have said before, we are a country as well as basically a constituency in chaos. Um, Crime pervades every sector, every street, every community, every village in Caronese. And that's very much so in Kelly Village. Kelly Village has become probably one of the, what we like to term here in Trinidad and Tobago as a hotspot area. And over the last 9 years, the situation in Kelly Village has gotten progressively worse. We have seen on many instances where persons have been actually shot in the public, usually with automatic rifles. As many as 40 to 50 gun casings, bullet casings have been found at the scene, used to just kill one person. And this is on the Caroni South Bank Road. And we have had numerous instances such as these in and around Kelly Village and the St. Helena area. So there's a lot of gang violence that currently is associated with Kelly Village and environs, and it's spilling out into the other communities. And what we saw recently was a young professional lady, a woman police officer, on returning from an engagement in the United States where she performed with, I think it was the police band, musical band, on returning to Piaco International Airport and commuting on her way to home. She was accosted by criminals outside of her residence in Hydraulic Road in Kelly Village. What seemed to be a carjacking, possibly a robbery, and she sustained major injuries, and she's currently in hospital recovering to some extent. And we pray for her. We pray for her full recovery. And this occurred roughly around 1 a.m. on that morning, roughly about a week ago. So nowhere is safe. Um, Someone such as the young WP, the young police officer, She
Mahabir,
has,
Mahabir, yeah.
yeah, Miss Mahabir, she has the right to return to her home in safety and security. No one has to undergo such a traumatic incident as well as sustain injury to themselves or their loved ones. So that's the situation we are facing. I have asked since 2020 to two different police commissioners directly for police posts in St. Helena to combat the increasing crime in the St. Helena area. Um, on both occasions, they have not acted upon my recommendation. I have done this in writing as well as I have done this in person, asking them personally. Um, and it's what I would say a simple fix. Kelly Village is not a very large area, and should we have a police post there with possibly one patrol with one vehicle, police officers would be able to react much quicker to an incident of crime and possibly curtail criminal activity in this area. I actually have one of my office staff that lives in Kelly Village, and he tells me on a consistent basis, night after night, they hear gunshots in Kelly Village, and the police are doing nothing about this. How difficult it is to wait for the gun to go off at night and to try to pinpoint the area in which this gun is being fired or guns. So, the police service, they are under-equipped, undermanned, under-resourced in terms of guns, in terms of vehicles, even in terms of protective gear, in order to protect themselves from these criminals. And in my opinion, they can't act effectively against the criminal element. So it's almost like a Wild West situation that we are facing currently here in Caron East. And that being said, crime also is present in many other areas in Caron East. We have the situation in where a body of a recent kidnap victim was found on Poker Road in Londonville, which is the southern part of the constituency, in a shallow grave. A young businessman that was kidnapped by allegedly persons that may be involved, that may have used a police vehicle. Um, and we also have a situation where another young businessman has also been recently kidnapped and is still um, not in the hands of law enforcement or has been recovered as yet. So extortion is another situation that we currently face in Caron East. Businessmen are being extorted for money, protection money, and should they not pay, they have to then bear the consequences of such. Um, and this, of course, reduces the economic activity in the constituency. Businessmen are moving out of the constituency and possibly out of the country as well, fearing the safety of themselves and their families. And, should this continue um, with the loss of economic activity as well as a brain drain from the country, and then we are facing increased shortage of natural gas and a reduced revenue for the country. Trinidad and Tobago is truly in dire straits, so to speak, going forward. So, we are in very treacherous times here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we need to see some light with regards to coming out of this very dark period in our history.
The in order for we to really curb the crime problem, we have to maintain a consistency with patrolling. We must apply all the deterrent strategies firsthand. I mean, we know that the justice system is in total chaos, but my concern is that, and I always reiterate, and you must have seen that I have a philosophy that justice don't resurrect the dead. I think it's our first objective to focus on deterrent. And the only way you can deter is if you're patrolling. I mean, my experience is not in the police, but in the security business. And so our objective is to deter crime much as possible to prevent it from happening. And I see it when the egg is broken, is broken. You can't fix that.
Yeah.
So that's how I see a human life. So I don't see um, we getting the acknowledgement, recognition from the police administration uh, in our requests at all. We are totally disrespected, far as I'm concerned. We see X amount of millions of dollars allocated to national security, but we don't see it trickling down to the police department, to the local station. We don't see that happening. I recently saw some pictures of the junkyard with police vehicles, and I know we have very skilled people in the country mechanically that can revitalize some of those vehicles. And because a lot of times you call the police don't have a vehicle, and I mean, I saw 200 motorbikes given by the Chinese government around 2000, I believe it was, close to when COVID struck us, somewhere around there, a little bit before that. And we don't see those motorbikes out on patrol. So if we are serious about fighting crime, I mean, we have to apply the full line of defense, which we are not doing. So that is my concern on how I see things. We also see the chaos with the infrastructure. We see the chaos. You brought up the issues with the government spending on the infrastructure of a hospital, building a big parking lot. In the meantime, patients can't get the basic supplies in the hospital. We can't get beds. We had people line up for days. I heard people that I don't even know. As you know, I've heard complaints about they spent 3 days not even in a bed, waiting in the hallway, and various things. So we don't see in nowhere where the money is trickling down to our people. We don't not getting value for money. We don't see. We see a very arrogant administration. And from day one, they came across very arrogant. They didn't take office as saying, well, election is over and let's focus on the country. We didn't see that. It was them in charge, and it's going to be their way. And if you don't like it, take the highway. And this government seems to be, how to say, hateful to the fact that Mrs. Bisesa allocated certain resources um, to our people to help better their lives, and that they seem to be vengeful. They took away the laptops, they took away the baby grant, they took away every resource that Mrs. Vicesa had put in place to assist a person to get ahead. So I can't understand how people can vote for that. That is very confusing. How can we support that? They are working against themselves, you know
Well, Gary, what we have seen is that this PNM government is really what I would say a manifestation of their political leader, Keith Rowley. And we have seen that many of his ministers have actually taken up his DNA, so to speak. So they are trying to mimic his behavior and his attitude and the way he speaks. And we have seen that obviously with Minister Stuart Young as well. And, they, in my opinion, they truly don't care about all of Trinidad and Tobago. We have seen that the allocation, firstly, with, as you were saying, national security, is very, very poor in terms of implementation in the rural districts. And when I say the rural districts, I mean mostly the UNC controlled areas. I actually had an incident last year where a man was accosted by two persons that walked into his house at 6 p.m., shot him in his head in front of his entire family and grandson. He died there at the scene. The persons then spent the next 15 minutes rummaging through the house looking for money, and then quite easily just drove away. And they are literally 5 minutes from the Cunupia police station. and the gunshot was heard by the entire village on Esmeralda Road, and somehow the assailants, they had enough time to go through things in the house looking for so-called money, and made their escape quite easily. So they knew that they had enough time to do what they had to do. And the question is, why were they so comfortable? And obviously, they have never been found. When you ask the police, they say, the matter is ongoing, investigations are continuing. In Trinidad and Tobago, that means nothing will happen.
It could be
Um,
25 years or
yeah,
never. And
never, yeah.
MP, I have gotten complaints. I'm kind of a little bit associated with people across the board, and I get complaints from business people that the police is in collaboration with the criminals, and if they don't pay for the protection money, then their business will get robbed. These are the kind of complaints I've gotten from various business people across the country.
Well, we have had quite a few TTPS cottage meetings in Caron East. We had one in Kelly Village over the last 4 years. We had at least two in St. Helena. We had at least two in Cunupia. I've been to most of them. There was one I couldn't attend. I think we had Parliament at the time when they had their meeting. But I have interacted with the police officers, and they have given every indication that they are trying their best with what they have. I have spoken to senior police officers in Central Division as well, and what they have indicated to me is that, they may try their hardest, but they are working with what resources that they have. So even when you go to these meetings and you ask them, we want a police post, and we want security cameras, CCTV cameras on the roadways, and we want increased patrols, and we want this and we want that. At the end of the day, they say, well, it's not up to them. It's up to the Minister of National Security.
Which we don't see the money trickling down, and we don't know where the money is going. We don't see where the money is
And
going.
and every parliamentary year, I ask the Minister of National Security the exact same question, and every single year I get the exact same answer. With what is the ministry doing in terms of curbing crime in Carneys, and every single year we get the exact same answer, and he reads it out, and he beats his chest, and he acts like is they're about to do something great, and nothing is being done, nothing at all. This is the most lawless we have seen Trinidad and Tobago probably in its history. We had a case just two buildings from the Caroni East constituency head office. That's my office on the Southern Main Road in Cunupia. Two buildings from my office in a cell phone shop. A mother and a father with a very, very young child, maybe 3 years old, 4 years old, and two fellows came into the shop. It's on video, and they held on the child. They grabbed the chain from the child's neck and the anklet from the child's ankle, and walked away. Walked through the door. That is how lawless we are in Trinidad and Tobago. And even I said it in the budget, even in the very upscale area of a very upscale pharmacy in West Trinidad. Um, two persons were coming out of the pharmacy at around 6 p.m. And as they entered their car, somebody came out of the parked car right next to them, pointed a gun to them, and robbed them. And this is in an extremely upper class area in Trinidad and Tobago. So crime is everywhere. Nowhere is safe. You could literally be in a cell phone shop buying a cell phone case, and you will be in a situation where somebody could be pointing a gun at you. So you don't have to go out and look for crime. Crime is coming to you. And what we have seen is that this government is totally incapable of solving crime in Trinidad and Tobago. What we are seeing right now is the Rowley administration at peak performance. Huh? This is the best that they can do. They can do no better. It's an election year, and they
Well,
are working as hard as they can, and as hard as they can is a failing grade. Um, I would tell the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you know, this is they can do no better than what they are doing right now. This is them at peak performance, and we are continuously losing citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. We may be on course of losing 600 lives to murders this year, um, quite easily, and I say that with a lot of regret. Um, and the citizens have to wake up. The next victim can be yourself, and crime is every single way in Trinidad and Tobago, Gary.
I've noticed even with all of this happening, the government still is still enforcing these old colonial laws that was based on when a police officer could walk around with a baton and maintain order. We are living in a day and age where not even the police uh, is of any threat to the criminals. They are not scared. They, like we seen, they shooting police officers. Even when the officer is armed, they opening fire on the officer. And the border, they with the border situation. I mean, they come in parliament every year, making rants about this legislation, that legislation. We not collaborating with them. In the meantime, they leave the whole apparatus for the national security to collapse. We ended up at one point where not there was not even one boat patrolling.
Yeah,
And even when they had, first of all, they have so many boats now. They have it. We know we've seen pictures of it rotting in Stowboats Bay. They refuse to use it on a political spite. And I mean, where's their priority? This government has clearly demonstrated that they have no interest in the citizen. They are there for themselves. I think the whole chaos is to somebody's benefit. The wide open borders is to allow certain illegal trades to take place. And whoever slip by, well, they slip by. It's like Rowley said, whoever dead, dead. That's how he sees it. And the man has no care or concern. The arrogance is from, from the top down. And hopefully we can get the citizenry convinced to vote them out in the 2025 or wherever the election comes by, if it comes before 2025. That I just want to encourage us to educate the population, to reiterate what we're saying, our plan of action for far as healthcare, growing the economy, dealing with the infrastructure issues, the school system, the various things. I was invited by Mrs. Bisesa to share my views on the manifesto, and quite a bit of the things that I seen you guys said, things that I had mentioned, and you guys are, maintaining that, which I am very happy to see taking place. The decentralization of the resources, we definitely need to work on that. Sending everybody into Port of Spain, creating unnecessary traffic, inconveniencing the citizen to get up 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning to just go get the simplest thing done is ridiculous. I want our people to realize they are citizens. We are no longer indentured laborers. We are no longer slaves. We need to shake off that kind of mentality and stand their ground, which they don't like to hear. We want to encourage our people to stand their ground on all the issues. You don't necessarily have to have a gun to stand your ground, but stand up for what you believe, stand up for what you think is right. We have seen this the situation where the government is fighting us, on the FUL issues of giving out the license. They are playing games with the police administration. I don't think it should be totally. We need to change that structure where it's not totally up to the commissioner alone to issue an FUL. I believe that it should be to a senior officer, a regional senior officer, maybe a senior superintendent within the jurisdiction, because one person can never handle the amount of demands for an FUL that we see happening right now. The need for not only giving an FUL, we need to offer some guidance on self-defense, how to use, safety use, and all these things has to be allocated with the FUL, things that we need to break down on the local community. So these are some of the things I would like to recommend, on us doing.
Well, Gary, you see, it also goes back to the school system, and the persons that we are producing out of our school system, and the level of values and ethics, and on what we are teaching our children, because these are the future citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And you just have to watch some of the bullying videos, some of the school fights. It's horrendous, and to know that those pupils will become adults in just a few years, 2 3 years. Um, some of them graduating without, a CXC certificate, and then they have to try to make a living. So the education system is broken. It's
Yeah, we need to
totally.
revamp. We need to revamp that. And
Yeah, and
even
you
though
see,
I
Gary,
called for, yeah,
yeah, you see, Gary, not everyone could be an academic person, and not everyone has the aptitude to continuously read for degrees, and to be a professional person, be it a doctor, a lawyer, accountant. And that is what we were trying to do under Kamla Prasad Bisesa between the period of 2010 to 2015, whereby we have a lot of these technical and vocational skills. Our current chief whip, MP, Dr. David Lee, he was instrumental in doing some of those programs. Persons need to be qualified, let's say, in masonry, in plumbing, our electrician technician, and they may have the aptitude for skills such as those, and then at the end of the day, they may become more successful than someone that does a professional degree, and that's what they do in Germany. So in Germany, at high school level, they identify the ones that could run the professional course of studies, and they also identify the ones that could go straight into vocational studies. And they do that from around the age of 13 or 14. They put them in those streams, and that's why they have such a fantastic engineering unit in Germany, because not only because of the engineers, but because of the technicians. They have a huge technical resource, be it in the automotive industry or whatnot. And similar is done in Japan. So not everyone has the aptitude to be a doctor, and if they are not a doctor, then they are nothing. So that
yeah,
is
that
what.
we have that wrong concept
Yeah.
and philosophy. But and you know what I believe. No, there's a couple other things I recommended. No, I recommended we using our secondary schools in the evening time for after school programs so we can enrich our people, whether it's job training or their education. But what my personal experience going to school is that the teacher was moving too fast. We couldn't catch up with how fast they were writing on the board, and they had an attitude: if we learned or you learned, they didn't care what they was getting paid. That is what we was told. So if you didn't understand something, there was not much help. What we need to do is I believe a lot of people could have succeeded if we met them at their level, provide some kind of support to give them a little explanation and help them to get ahead. So the attitude with the teachers was wrong. I believe in meeting people at their level and bringing them up instead of condemning them. Also, if you are not everybody's going to be a doctor or lawyer. But the thing about if you're going to be a plumber, you should be an educated plumber. If you're going to be a mechanic, you should be an educated mechanic, or builder or whatever it is. And we should provide
Certified. You should be
yeah, we should
certified. Yeah.
provide that support where you get the academic skills to work around that.
Yeah.
If you are bored with something, your mind shuts down basically,
Yeah.
and it's natural human nature. We lack in the right infrastructure and support system to engage our children in sports and things like that, that after school programs that can help a lot with our kids running the street and letting out all the energy fighting each other. I believe we burn them out doing some tracks or some physical activity, and they will see less of this. So the children is kind of suffocated. So this can be a long
Not
process.
only that is in terms of teaching ethics and integrity and behavior. There's I, I understand the idea that if you put them in sports or whatnot, they will burn out the energy. But you have to also let them know what is right and what is wrong. And what I'm seeing right now is many of the kids, they idolize many wrong things.
Yeah, yeah, the
And
gangster kind of culture.
yeah, exactly. The kerchief on the head, and this kind of attitude, and we get nowhere with that. And we have to weed that out of the society. And they need positive role models. And I've had this conversation with many senior politicians on the other side, and I always tell them, what you said in parliament today, the kids are hearing what you said. Why did you have to make the point like that? And I tell them this in the tea room. I was like,
Yeah, I mean the hooligan attitude.
yeah, attitude, the behavior is like,
Yeah.
I understand exactly the point you were trying to make, but why did you do it in such a way? And for them, it's a big game, it's a big show. They are there to entertain persons, right? Their contribution is a entertainment skit. And they don't realize the children are looking at that, and they're thinking, all right, I could act like that as well, and I don't have to be better academically or better technically than the next person. I just have to act like that. And that is the way that they want to portray a role model in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is so very, very wrong. So in terms of positive role models, yeah, we are really backward in terms of that, in terms of what is happening right now on the other side in Parliament. It's we are Parliament, with regards to Parliament. I think we hit the lowest low in Trinidad Parliament within the last month or so, and the entire public saw that. And I commend the Speaker of the House for her actions. Um, Personally, myself, I would have preferred it to have gone a little bit further in terms of sanctioning errant behavior. But she did make a stand, and she did make a stand against what was reasonable and what was not reasonable behavior in Trinidad and Tobago's parliament. And we have to take a stand against certain behavior in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. As I have said before, the kids are looking on, and that cannot be behavior that they would try to emulate. Otherwise, we become a hooligan country, and
Well,
um,
we're
and
not
and
far from that.
without money going forward, right? Right now the government is able to provide food cards and social relief to many, many disadvantaged families. But when we reach a situation where those programs have to be reduced due to reduced revenue from oil and gas, what will be the situation then?
Well,
So,
speaking of the food cards, there was so much discrimination with this food card situation when they took government. A lot of people food cards. We got complaints who really needed it was taken away. They passed judgment on it very hastily, and I am still concerned if a lot of people are getting. I've had too many people reach out to me requesting assistance, and I had to make calls around outside the country, reach out to people within the country to kind of get some food supplies to these people. In fact, I had a lady recently, she said her kids didn't have food for 3 days, and that kind of hurt me. You know what I mean? So
and it's not only the food cards, Gary. And very, very good point with the food cards. All MPs and all the UNC constituencies, we go through that issue, whereby we don't really have much say with regards to the Ministry of Social Development and the allocation of food support. But also, you know, um, we had a situation where caregivers. So I recently lost a constituent, Miss Angela Swamber, in Caron, and she was blind and she had an autistic child, right? And she had a caregiver between the period 2010 and 2015, and she met every criteria to have a caregiver. She was blind, and she had a child suffering from cerebral palsy, an adult child that needed 24-hour care. and they took away the caregiver from this lady, and she passed only a couple of weeks ago. And my condolences to her family and loved ones. And we tried so hard to convince the ministry to give her back a caregiver, and they took it away from her. And I, for the life of me, I could not understand if a blind single parent living alone with a child with disabilities, in this case cerebral palsy, if they can't qualify for a caregiver, who can?
And, but
Who
there's no
can?
no sense of urgency, Doc. And far as I see, and there is totally in consideration, and I see I sense very strong prejudice and discrimination in response to people.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I have been an active politician now for a little more than 4 years. Um, I I am originally a dentist, but I have. It's very disheartening, to be honest, my experience to see what a government can do to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is very, very disheartening. The persons that need care, the persons that need social support, are not getting it. I I give out SCA pencil kits, SCA packs, stationary packs, to SCA students about 2 or 3 weeks before the SCA exam every year. And so I go into all the primary schools in Caron. When I go into one particular school, you can see the kids that are socially disadvantaged and that are looking at a life other than a legal life to make a living, by the way they are dressed, even though they are in a uniform, by the way they act. When I speak to the class to give them a little pep talk before the examination, some of them can't even make eye contact with you. Make it the facial expressions, the attitude, and those are the ones that the social workers have to target. Those are the ones that probably need social assistance at home in terms of food or some sort of relief to their families. And what we are seeing is the food card system being used for political benefit. Are you a party card member? Did you attend this rally? How do you support the party? This sort of
I saw that in the 2020 election. I saw that.
criteria, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I saw that criteria.
so even though we are saying that we have X amount of dollars to social programs, how are the programs being used? And Trinidad and Tobago, we are in a really, really sad place. We are seeing a political party that's all about party and not country. And I am really, really fearful for the future of Trinidad and Tobago under this administration.
I mean, we've seen what happened under the children. We can't even rely on the children authority to protect the children. Number one, our yeah,
Every ministry is failing. You and I, we could talk here until morning,
yeah,
just off the top of our heads.
yeah.
Every single ministry
It's a
in
total
Trinidad and
disaster.
Tobago failing the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and citizens have to wake up. You may, you may be expecting a hamper from the government, or you may be expecting some little sort of benefit from the government, but you have to wake up to the bigger picture, right?
You're settling for crumbs. You're settling for crumbs,
This
and
government is going to crash the country. We
right.
are well on the way of crashing the country in terms of human capital, right? They already crashed the oil and gas sector, right? They are on record of saying we do not have enough gas to run this country in 2026, 2027, 2028, right? And then when we reach those years, they'll probably say they have to extend it for a couple more years. That will be the excuse. But the human capital of Trinidad and Tobago, they have mismanaged that. Our human capital, our citizens,
Well,
And
with all this regard, I think I noticed this government within, I would say, within the first 6 months of taking office, that the arrogance had chased away our foreign investors. That's
I
the way.
wouldn't call it arrogance, I would personally I would call it stupidity.
Yeah, well, all of that mixed in one.
You know, arrogance is just a facade because they're just ignorant of anything that they could do. So they put up this facade, that they are this proud person, when in truth and fact they just don't know how to do anything. Um, so my opinion, they are a bunch of jokers, a total bunch of jokers, and the country has to wake up. As I said, we are a country in chaos, Gary. Total chaos.
So I want to continue to use this platform to educate as much as possible. If you have a message, it could be a short one, a 10-minute message or whatever it is that you need to bring across to the people. Something is occurring, in the country. I want to be able to be able to to make that possible, and it's within 5 minutes I can have you up and running to say what you have, so it doesn't have to be a lengthy thing. Like if there's an issue taking place, a current event, situation, I would like to be able to give you that opportunity. I also have two other people join me here, Trini to the Bone and Mr. Arjun Harry Paul. He's a former associate with the central bank, and with Mr. Jawala. So I would like to add him. So they might have a couple questions for you. Let me just give them that opportunity. 1 second. Add to the stage. Um, so gentlemen, if you Trinity Bow, Mr. Harry Paul, if you have any questions, suggestion you would like to mention, please feel free to do that now. I'm not sure you can hear me. Well, okay, I don't think so. You guys would have to unmute your mic. All right. So in the meantime, MP, I don't know if you have a couple more minutes. We saw the corruption taking place with the Ministry of Health. We've seen the issues that you mentioned with the dentist industry. One of it was brought to my attention. I might have sent something along the line. I don't remember if I did or did not. But anyway, um, we are concerned about people operating in a professional field that is not qualified, that
Yeah,
is
so
putting
that's a
citizens
yeah,
at
that's a big
risk.
issue right now in Trinidad and Tobago, whereby our legislation, our dental act, does not allow the authorities to prosecute someone that is not qualified in dentistry to practice dentistry. So to be a dentist, you have to do O levels, you have to do A levels, you have to get into dental school. Dental school at university is 5 years. The first 3 years are full medical school, and then you do the last 2 years. You do clinical dentistry, and then you do 1 year internship under supervision. And we have persons in Trinidad and Tobago that are practicing dentistry that have not qualified as dentists, and they set up shop. Dental suppliers sell to them. They sell them dental materials, dental equipment. Patients go to them thinking that they are dentists. They are injecting persons with anesthetic. They are doing procedures on persons, and these patients may have medical issues, and these persons have no idea what they are doing, and we do not have the legislation to prosecute these guys and to stop them from practicing dentistry. Um, and we have always had this in Trinidad and Tobago, mainly persons building dentures. But now we have persons not only building dentures, but they are trying to extract teeth, and they are trying to do fillings and root canals and whatnot as well. And this is very, very dangerous, not only in terms of clinical negligence of performing a bad procedure on someone, but also in terms of the transmission of disease, because bloodborne diseases, and are they cleaning the equipment, the instruments correctly, and do they know how to clean the instruments? Do they have the equipment to sterilize the instruments? So you may work on someone with AIDS, and then you go and put some soap on that, and the next patient you could transfer AIDS to that person. So I have asked the Minister of Health in every single budget presentation I've made to please bring the relevant legislation to let us correct this. That's so in every country except Trinidad and Tobago, where police, police could go into someone if they are not registered as a dentist and shut them down and put them in court. They have to pay, and they face criminal prosecution. And we have persons practicing for decades. And what we are also seeing now is with the Venezuelans, they are coming across and they are setting up dental
Salon shop.
offices
Yeah.
in under persons' houses, in hair salons, in massage parlors, and they are doing dentistry and orthodontics on persons. And some outrageous cases that I'm seeing, and ridiculous prices, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are going to them. And when you speak to when you speak to them, you say, "Well, why did you go there?" And they say, "Well, they are dentists." And I'm like, "No, they are not a dentist." And the citizens don't know. So Gary, it's total chaos here in Trinidad and Tobago. This country is in and out into a comedy right now, and
But we have to
not
bring that
it's,
information forward. You see, the thing about it is we have to take every opportunity to expose this, because it's a life-threatening issue.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Not just
and
a scrapyard and junk man and selling old iron. It's a person's life, and if they kill you, they cause your death. Nobody takes responsibility. Nobody can hold them responsible.
yeah, and for the life of me, I mean, this government is not one that you could speak to and give suggestions. So the opposition is almost like we have no input in anything under this administration. So because you raise this point, as you said, because of the arrogance or possibly the ignorance, they would ignore that because you raised it. So they don't want you to get credit for raising that issue and having it remedied for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the stupidity that we are currently facing in Trinidad and Tobago.
I see them as being totally self-centered. They're on their own agenda, and the quicker people see that, the quicker we expose that. The thing about these things is, you say it once, it might not be good enough. I have discovered that here in America, you have to keep singing it. You have to keep reiterating until it sinks into people's head that they really grasp what is taking place, how much of a threat. I mean, we've seen the threat with the gunmen on the street, but these threats you don't see where malpractice can injure with an unqualified, unprofessional person, uncertified, can put your life at risk, and he or she would not be held accountable. Now, these countries like Venezuela and the South American country, there is a lot of cosmetic jobs, and butch jobs that has taken place that's cost people their lives. There is a black market with organ transplant and this kind of stuff that we have to be really careful. We have so many missing people in the country. We don't know what became of them. We don't know if their organs were taken and sold on the black market. So
Well,
I mean,
that organ transplants may be a stretch in Trinidad and Tobago, because to do that you'll have to have the facilities. You'll have to also be able to preserve the
no,
organ.
I'm just saying they could be sold outside in South America, kidnapped and transferred outside the country. I'm
That
just saying
yeah,
these
that
things take
is
place.
that is probably a stretch. Because at the same time, while we criticize, we have to be realistic. So we can't go down the road of fantasy too much, because then you get ridiculed. But that is a little too far. But yeah, definitely in terms of malpractice, in terms of bloodborne diseases with dentistry, we also have an issue with uncertified medical laboratories providing blood tests and whatnot to citizens here in Trinidad and Tobago, and they are not certified. The medical industry, in terms of medical doctors, seems to be fairly well regulated at the moment. Um, we do have some doctors that have been disbarred um, from their um, from their medical registration licensing institution in the States and otherwise that are practicing here in Trinidad and Tobago, and some are practicing as specialists. Uh, I could get into that a little further at another
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
but
yeah. Whenever you're free to come back. I mean, I know you might be kind of tired. So,
yeah,
but
but
we do thank you for taking the time, though. But the thing
yeah,
about it is, there's so much of things that are happening, that we do have to really bring this in the public domain and try to
yeah.
educate the people of what's taking place. So, any last words, MP? Anything else you would like
Oh,
to?
good night, gentlemen. Good night, Doc.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Good night. Good night.
I was away for a bit. I didn't get to come in. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about um, what is happening in the health sector with in terms of procedures. People, I know of people who have emergency procedures for open heart and for doing stents and so on, and they get 4 and 5 and 6 months to just do an angiogram, and people who have that to issues with their kidneys and stuff, they have many months to wait before they can get tested or treatment and so on. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Right. So very, very good question. And that was the bulk of my presentation during the budget. So what the government is doing is they have spent a lot of money building hospitals around Trinidad and Tobago. Many of them are over budget, and many of them are very much delayed. So the Arima Hospital is 450 million over budget. The Point Fortin Hospital is 200 million over budget. The Sandy Grande Hospital is 250 million over budget, and the central block of the Port of Spain General Hospital is 167 million currently because it's not finished as yet over budget. So these are all $1 billion, over a billion TT um, dollar hospitals each, and they are all well over hundreds of millions of dollars over budget. So in the last 9 years, just in these infrastructure projects alone, we have over $1 billion TT over budget. And what we are seeing is for some reason that these hospitals, in addition to the ones that we currently have in our regional health authorities, they are farming all the work to private institutions. So we are paying private institutions hundreds of millions of dollars a year just to do clinical procedures for us in the state sector. So they are in this fiscal year we are spending $50 million to do um, cardiac procedures. In the we are doing 3,000 retinal procedures out of the state, and as well as we are spending $160 million for cancer, and we are also spending $380 million for 3,400 renal dialysis patients. So we are sending these dialysis patients to private institutions to get dialyzed. $380 million in the last 4 years. So why aren't they being done in the state hospitals after we spent so much money constructing these hospitals? And the reason is that the hospitals, they lack the manpower. So even though we have built all these billion-dollar hospitals and given contracts to, in many cases, Chinese contractors to build these huge infrastructure projects, we don't have the specialist manpower, be it doctors, technicians, and nurses, to be in these facilities to do the clinical procedures. I actually have a very, very good friend. He did his angiogram. He managed to do his angiogram privately because he could not wait the 4 or 5 months, as you said, after a heart attack. And he has to wait a very long period of time to get his bypass surgery, and during that time he could die. And just to give you an idea of how far behind we are here in Trinidad and Tobago, I have a friend as well. He went up to the States, had a heart attack. He was taken to the hospital. They did the angiogram as an emergency procedure after he came out of the ambulance into the hospital. And directly after the angiogram, they asked him to sign a consent form, and he went and did the bypass surgery immediately after that.
That's how
So
we
from
do it here.
from heart attack to angiogram to bypass surgery, all within a period of 12 hours. And in Trinidad, from between heart attack and angiogram at the state level is months, probably 4 to 6 months. And then from the angiogram to the bypass is another year, right? So you have 18 months from somebody who had a very severe cardiac event. And that is third world country medicine, to be honest, where we are relying on medicating the patients and hoping that they are alive to get a bypass surgery after. So we are very, very far behind. We made our my political leader Kamala Prasad Bisesa made recommendations during her budget presentation in which she outlined measures that we will take to remedy all of these situations and to bring Trinidad and Tobago to first world country status in terms of healthcare with regards to cardiac procedures, renal procedures, and even cancer therapies. So we are, the Ministry of Health is in total chaos. There is no direction. There's no leadership, in my opinion. The Minister of Health, I can say so much about him, but I prefer not to at this point in time.
Yeah, we
Doc,
can
uh,
go at length to that.
Doc,
uh,
just to highlight, um, in terms of these specialist procedures like open heart surgery or stents and angiograms and so on, are they being carried out at the Point Fortin Hospital, the Arima Hospital, the Sandy Grande Hospital, the Tobago, in any of the hospitals in Tobago, or do they still have to come to one of the San Fernando General or do
so
they go
the
to Mount Hope?
the Scarborough Hospital has a cath lab, but they don't have a cardiologist, right? The Point Fortin, the Arima, and the Sandy Grande hospitals don't have a cath lab. So if you get a heart attack in in those areas, in those catchment areas, you have to find your way to Mount Hope.
So they are just glorified health centers.
White
They're not
elephants, I call them. I call them white elephants. Glorified health centers is a nice term as well. Um, my brother is a interventional cardiologist, and he practices at the Mount Hope Hospital, Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, and he does a lot of these state angiograms and whatnot. But is limited manpower. A doctor can only do so much, and we have many Trinidadians, Trinbagonians, that have qualified and specialized in the United States in interventional cardiology and are willing to come back to Trinidad and Tobago. We just have to offer them the jobs, and we have to offer them the salaries, and we have to offer them the equipment and the technical staff to do their jobs across the country. And security at the hospitals is another consideration. Many of these highly qualified doctors will not practice in a hospital 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing that walking to the car park they could meet their death, right? So so many things have to change. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Um, but yeah, situation could be fixed. It's one that could be remedied. Uh, but as you said before, many critically ill cardiac patients that have suffered a heart attack and that do not have to pass can be saved. But we lack the political will. We are spending billions of dollars, but are the citizens really getting the benefit of it? Um, and we have a population. They have to be a little more educated in terms of the fact that medicine has reached a point where persons can be they
Be saved,
can be,
saved.
yeah,
It can be
they can
saved and
they
treated.
can be saved and treated, and their issue can be remedied, be it with a surgical intervention or keyhole
Minor procedure.
surgery, yeah, a minor procedure, or even if we had the appropriate drugs available to many clinically chronically ill persons. We have the CDAP program. Many of the drugs are generic drugs, and they are not updating the drugs. In that, persons that have become tolerant to metformin and glucophage, they have to go out of pocket now to buy the more advanced modern drugs because it's not on the CDAP list. Um, so we are a country, as I would say, we are not even treading water. We are currently going down, and we are drowning. And this country has to wake up. And I don't really know how much more citizens could take. We have a roads. We didn't even speak about roads. We have
Yeah, we're
some
building
of the
highways
most
and we don't fixing what we have.
we have some of the most dilapidated roads. I have a road in Caroni called Welcome Road, and I am just so shocked at that road. I not horse and carriage can even pass on that road, more or less cars. If you see this road, I will make a video and send it to you, Gary. It is amazing, and year after year, we are writing both the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Local Government to assist us. That road was a three-phase project, and we did two phases between 2010 and 2015, from Esmeralda to the end of Welcome Road. By the end of 2015, we had finished all of Esmeralda and part of Welcome Road. And as we lost the election, nothing has been done on that road since. And that was the third phase to finish that last part there in Welcome Road. And 2015, we lost the election. Between 2016 and 2020, Dr. Gopi Singh made so much representation with regards to that road in Parliament, asking for it to be continued. And now into 2020 to currently, I am trying to do the same, and they just ignore us. Um, it's really, really to understand that this current administration, the Rowley administration, which is I would say a subset of the PNM party, that they have taken the PNM party, hijacked the party. Prime Minister Manning told us so much about Rowley, and yet the population still went and voted him in. And exactly what Prime Minister Manning said about him is all true. We have seen that. We actually had to go through it to learn, and nothing will change. Nothing will
But
change under this Rowley administration. Nothing. I make the distinction between Manning PNM and Rowley PNM. It's two totally different beasts.
it's
And
important for us to enlighten and educate the population about that. In now that you mentioned Dr. Gopi Singh, another question comes to mind. In your constituency, how many schools? I don't know if you would be privy to that information off the top of your head right now, but how many schools have been left in disrepair where children are in community centers and in mosques and in makeshift in mandirs and so on? How many schools in your constituencies are in that situation?
so
West.
we have 12 primary schools in Caronese. We don't have any secondary schools, and we actually have one school, the Londonville Presbyterian School, that was burned down, and they had to move in 2019 into a community center, and they moved into the Junenham Community Center, and they are currently there since 2019, and appalling conditions, appalling conditions. So I have visited that school on many occasions. We have like three standards: standard one, standard two, and standard three in one room, and they put blackboards between to partition the students. Um, they have the standard five students in a 400 square foot room. They have the standard four students in a 500 square foot room. It's really appalling. It's a community center, and on the weekends they have weddings and whatnot. And when the children come out to school on Monday, beer bottles and alcohol bottles are all over the place. The bathrooms are filthy. So I've made representation as well as MP Vandana Mohit, because the community center is in her constituency, but the original school was in mine, was in Caronese. So both of us make representation for this school, and completely ignored. In fact, I had one minister tell me, "Well, why didn't we build a school for them between 2019 and 2020 if it's so important to you?" And that is what we are dealing with. They tell us,
Narrative.
No,
arrogant.
it's not arrogance. People say arrogance. I don't know. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's more like
It's a
evil.
combination. It's a
No,
combination.
it's like an evil human being. Is that is not arrogance. That is just a despicable human being.
Hateful and
Yeah, that is
spiteful. Yeah,
arrogance.
we see the hate. We see the hate from miles away.
Yeah, is hate. It's just pure hate. It's pure hate. You saw that when we went to the Diwali program, and TTT cut off the feed to the
When Lolita
live
was speaking, yeah, yeah.
right before she came on, and then it went back on right after. And then they have all these fantastic explanations about why this happened. But why didn't it happen when a PNM person was speaking on another night? Um, so it's just pure hate. And citizens have to understand, we are dealing with the most hateful administration in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And I make the distinction between the Manning administration and this Rowley administration. They are not the same. It is not the same. They are not, in my opinion, loving people. They are not God fearing people, right? They are different type of PNM. My father worked his entire life in government as a senior public servant, and he worked under the Manning administration. And he's retired now, and he's like he has never seen anything like this. He worked his entire life
To be to,
under the PNM governments, many different governments since he was a young professional. And he says he has never seen a PNM administration like this. And we have to make a distinction. This is not correct. This is not how it is supposed to be in Trinidad and Tobago.
yeah, I want to agree with you, but it's difficult to imagine people would be harboring that kind of animosity and hate that
It is unreal. The level of hate is unreal.
um
It is beyond comprehension.
I listened to Senator Sagram Singh Sukal in her presentation, and I was very, very disappointed to see a young woman behaving like that in Parliament. And
As I told Gary before, they take the DNA of their leader. Dr. Munilal told me that, they try to mimic their leader. So that is what students across Trinidad and Tobago are doing as well. They they,
right
they
on,
think they
exactly.
think he's some sort of role model. And but that is
Contagious
and
behavior, man. It's contagious behavior. You
you
know,
see you see the thing is, Gary, I mean, I just can't, for the life of me, I can't understand how that could be acceptable behavior in a modern day society. People have access to CNN, and they have access to BBC, and they see what's happening around the world. It's not like they're living in a bubble anymore and they could only read newspapers like in the 60s and the 70s. You have the internet, you have social media, you have cable TV.
and
You
we
must,
travel. We travel a lot.
and,
We
and, and you
travel
travel. Yeah, I mean,
a lot more than before. We
you
see how
know,
things are done overseas.
you see how leaders behave, and that is not acceptable. That is not acceptable for me, and it should not be acceptable to many other persons. I mean, um you spoke about Senator Sagram Singh, and then we have a few others that are in the PNM. And for the life of me, I could not understand what would compel you to join a party under Keith Rowley. I mean, I just can't understand it. For the way the man behaves, the way the man acts. Um, after 9 years, what is he still angry about? I mean, he has been running the country for 9 years. 9 years. What is happening right now in Trinidad and Tobago is
And
a
blame
direct
UNC for anything that he can't get done in the first
is
place.
is a direct result of him. You could have said in 2016, well, because of so and so on, maybe in 2017, but after 9 years, what you standing up
Yeah,
in Parliament and you so angry and agitated, and all of a sudden you ready to burst a blood vessel in your brain just by speaking. What you angry about exactly? What is because of you? You understand? but everything is a show, everything is a game, everything is PR for for the other side. Everything is entertainment for them.
Yeah,
Is
everything UNC did is not good. Every good resource for the people, they hate that fact. But Doc,
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I,
Gentlemen,
I,
can I
yeah,
can I come in at this point?
Please,
yeah,
please do, please do.
Yeah.
yeah.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Doc.
Good
Good
night.
Um,
night.
you're in Parliament and you've been there for I think it's the last 10 years, right? So I
4 years.
wanted you to make a
Last 4 years.
4 years, right? So I wanted you to make a comment because we keep hearing the commentators for the PNM saying that this opposition is so inexperienced and weak and so on and so forth. But I didn't pay much attention until recently. In fact, this last budget debate, I really paid some attention to the speakers for the PNM, and there are 22 in the lower house. And I was taken aback, really, a little surprised when I saw the contribution from some of the other members who we don't see often. And I wanted you to make a comment in terms of, I imagine there are people in there who probably have never really made a significant contribution in any debate at all in the parliament. So it may very
So
well be that this
yeah,
current crop of PNM MPs are as weak as they have ever been. Now, I'd like a comment from you on that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I personally, I have never um, insulted anybody personally on the other side when I make my contributions, but they are very, very weak. They have 2 or 3 or 4 speakers that they try to rotate on every single bill, and they have others, many others that would speak probably once for the year, and that would be for the budget debate, and they
Right,
are very, very, very weak speakers. The Speaker of the House give them a lot of leeway when they make their presentations.
right,
Um, on our side, yeah, we did have quite a few new members coming in. Myself, I was a new member in
right,
2020, and it is a learning process. I will not shy away from that. You have to learn. It's a steep learning curve, and you have to really take it in very quickly.
right,
But you get accustomed to it. But yeah, there are some very weak members on the other side. I actually had a private members motion in the last parliamentary year on healthcare, and one of the members on the other side kept saying over and over non-communication diseases
oh
rather
my
than
God.
non-communicable diseases, and he said it over and over and over while he was reading his speech, and I just didn't have the meanness in me to get up and ridicule him, because I understood that that was the level that he's at, and I didn't want to insult him and make him feel bad. But if it was one of us on the other that did that, their side would have been
Yeah,
they would have played that up so much. But
yeah,
yeah, he didn't know the word communicable, and he was reading it um, as communication. So you're speaking about non-communication diseases and
yeah,
acting like, but it shows that he had a completely prepared speech by someone, because he was saying whatever he was saying, he was reading it. So he knew nothing about what he was saying. But I don't have it in me to be that mean to someone. So I would criticize the points that he would have made, even though it was somebody else that maybe wrote it for him. But I didn't. Yeah, they have some very weak persons on the other side.
yeah. I was a little
90,
I was a
90%
little
of
surprised that they're getting away with it because we constantly keep hearing that the opposition members are young and inexperienced and so forth. But
This budget debate, more than any of the others, I think we convincingly won this debate. I mean, in every ministry, I can't speak of one ministry where our shadows didn't overpower the opposing shadow, and I think we did very well. We got the last say with MP Ravi Ratiram. where he actually spoke after the prime minister, and he had a stellar performance. The political leader obviously set the stage for us with her very comprehensive plan for what she hopes to achieve in her next term as a prime minister. But yeah, we have all come a long, long way, and we are well seasoned now. And I think we are ready. The leader, spent a lot of time in the first 2 years training us. Um, she she spent a lot. She spent a lot of time telling us. She imparted a lot of wisdom upon us, telling us how to research a topic, where to go to, um, what to look for in a debate. She would call you, she would call me, and spend some time speaking, sometimes late at night. And for me, a former prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago, spending that kind of time with you, trying to help you hone out your craft, that is so, so very special to me. Something I'll always remember. And she did that with all the new MPs as well, meaning ones that started in 2020.
Right.
Something that I'll never forget. And people have to understand, that is why I'm so loyal to her. She invested in me. She invested in me. She saw something in me. I'm just speaking about myself, and she continues to invest. She guides you along the way. She's a very kind, a very nurturing, a very teaching person.
Yeah.
She's a teacher. She's a teacher, and she lifts us all up. We can't reach her level, um, maybe in the future, but she brings us up, and many of the senior MPs as well. They do that as well. I lean a lot on MP Endorsing, MP Munilal, the chief whip, even Dave Tanku, even though he started only in 2020 as an MP, but he's been in politics a long time. If I have a question on notice, I would, right before say, Dr. Munilal or Dave, what should my supplemental be? And they don't hesitate to help. They don't hesitate to help. So we had a few young ones. Michelle was fantastic. Michelle Benjamin, MP Michelle Benjamin was fantastic in his last budget debate. MP Vandana Mohit, Khadija is always fantastic. MP Arnold Ram, who I sit next to, he was stellar. I spoke about MP Ravi Rati Ram. I learned so much from Barry. Barry, is such a small guy, but such a big voice, and how he fills the room with his voice. I watch these guys. I'm still trying to learn how to be a effective public speaker, and I constantly ask them questions because they do it so well. So like I have all the technical knowledge in my mind, but it's how you present it to the public for them to consume it, and not be too academic in the way you do so. That is what I try to work on. Others work on different aspects of their presentation, but yeah, we get in there. Um, Parliament is, you have to make a entertaining contribution. Um, so you have to be able to hold the audience. So that is something, yes, that I am learning and others are learning as well. Dr. Monilal is very good at that. How he throws in a few jokes in between, and with the technical aspects as well as the critiques of the opposing side. So yeah, we learn from the seniors. MP Endorsing, he teaches me how to rebut. He shows me how you just have to listen to what the next person is saying and rebut each point, and you would make 20 minutes just off of that alone. By just saying don't agree with that point that person said alone. That's all you have to do. So we learning and we continuing to learn, but most importantly, we are grounded in humility, in respect, in integrity in public life. and with the way we treat our constituents and all those that we represent, and the way we care about ourselves. That is the most important thing. And yes, we will get there in terms of stellar parliamentary performances in the future as well. But as I said before, on the other side, they rely heavily on maybe four speakers for almost every budget debate, and many of the others don't really get to speak much at all.
90% of their contributions is rhetoric, innuendo, and
Yeah,
basically
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
deep speak on
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing in
related.
terms of sustainable development and building the country. Exactly. Yes.
Correct.
You have to question really if they are the government when they speak, because they're looking for all kinds of excuses rather than dealing with the policy issues and so on. So they leave you confused sometimes, but I guess as you say, they really can't do better. I was listening to that guy from Toko Sandigrandi, if I've got the constituency right, but he was hopeless.
Yeah. Well, I don't really like to um, insult or criticize openly my colleagues, but some of the contributions were very weak on the other side. Very, very, very weak, and they don't get much practice, and you can imagine their performance when they are attached to a ministry. I
Yeah.
actually had a question on notice to a junior minister, and the minister was out of the country, and I asked her a question on notice. So they get 21 days to see the question beforehand. When I asked the question, she stood up and she said, "Yeah, I don't know the answer to this," and
Wow.
I was like, "What? But you had this for 21 days." And she's like, "Could you refile it and ask it again another time?" And that is someone who is a junior minister in one of the biggest ministries and the most important ministries in Trinidad and Tobago. So
Sounding
you
like the Ministry of Education.
so you could imagine zero work is being done by that person in that ministry. Nothing is being done. Yeah, that is, I tell you, is a comedy. And I'm just hoping this country doesn't become a tragedy, but is really a comedy on that side.
Speaking about, I just wanted to bring some things forward. You were speaking about the medical situation there, and I noticed you mentioned about the ambulance and stuff like that in Parliament. So me and Dr. Gopi Singh have been dialoguing on that. In that we have plans. Should we make government to improve the quality of ambulance service for people, and definitely it needs to be positioned in a strategic way so that it can respond quickly and effectively. Now, what we have here in the States is if you get in an ambulance, they are communicating with the medical center that you head into. The equipment is there, you're hooked up, and they are properly trained. So by the time you get to the hospital, they already know most of what's going on with you. You
So
know,
what we have here, Gary, is nothing close to what you have in the States. So we have a hub next to the Port of Spain market. That's where the ambulances they go to be disinfected and cleaned, and then in many cases they respond from there. So if you have a heart attack in Labre, you in real trouble. You
so
in real
you
trouble.
waiting for ambulance from Port of Spain? Is that what you basically telling me?
In
Well,
some cases, yes.
that is what I we experienced as a family with my father when
Hmm.
he came back to Trinidad, and decided he wanted to retire at home. I mean, an hour and a half for an ambulance, and this is what really got me starting asking questions what was going on in my country. And they came and they didn't really do anything to help, shock him or anything like that. They just let it go.
Yeah.
And what I've seen here in the States where a person's heartbeat can go so low, but they're not dead. And if you do the right things, I mean, I've seen
Yeah,
patients,
resuscitation. Yeah.
yes,
So
submersion in ice and different things, you know.
yeah, so it's twofold. You don't have the facilities, and secondly, you don't have the manpower. So that was part of my contribution. We're spending billions of dollars, but exactly where the money going, So what my leader has decided to do she would like to build a hub for the ambulances in East Trinidad, one in Central and one in South. And the ambulances could be based there, and they could respond from these very close areas to the
So
surrounding
they can be
community.
placed by the fire station with the fire station too. They can be placed within the fire station area.
Or as well as they could
Yeah.
respond from many of the hospitals as well. But we currently have a private contractor that provides the ambulance service, and we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to this private contractor that runs the ambulance services in Trinidad and Tobago.
With no
Uh,
equipment, basically no life-saving
and
equipment in there.
yeah,
It's just a ride with a ride. Basically, I was told by one of our senior doctors, it's basically a ride with lights. There is no equipment. There's nothing there. Now,
exactly.
Doc, I saw the situation with Brett, and I started to try to get some emergency response help. I was able to get a team out of Jersey City. I was able to get Hackensack Medical University Hospital willing to assist us with our ambulance EMT training and come down to Trinidad and stuff like that. I got a team out of Jersey City who will help us not only to train professional people, but to train community volunteers. So that is the system we have here. We have volunteers together with with the skilled people. So the idea is that in case in an emergency situation, if you have somebody that is driving by can help until the ambulance gets here. That's what we're trying to get at. We have a lot of people getting shot in the country. I mean, we have the medical issues, and nobody an accident takes place, nobody knows what to do because you're waiting forever for help. So training the local members of the community in responding to emergencies. These should be volunteers. Now, I was able to get 200 people out of Komoto Manzilanda when Christine Hussein was there, right? And the government showed no interest. I mean, I have letters and communication, with them, the ministry, letting them know that these people were willing to come and do it free of charge, and the government refused. They were communication with the ODPM and on disaster response, they totally refused. So all this was discussed with our political leader. She likes the idea. It's just a matter of taking government, and we will implement a lot of these things, not only with trained professional, but the community people, the teachers, the whoever lives in the community will get training if they so desire. We want to encourage this kind of a volunteer training thing so that you can help yourself, help your family, help your neighbors until an ambulance get there. We will outfit the ambulance. I've already discussed this at length with Dr. Gopi Singh with the equipment, the communication for the emergency room, communicating into what we have here in the States. Dr. Gopi Singh is very knowledgeable because he has lived overseas and studied overseas. He knows what the deal is. He wants to do these things. It's just a matter. We want the people to understand what we're trying to do in the country.
Yeah.
We're
So
not just
what
all talk.
the one of the main issues is trained personnel, medical personnel to be on the in the ambulance. Um, so persons that are qualified and able to do resuscitation of a person in an emergency situation, and we don't have the numbers of persons to man in each ambulance. That is one of the main issues, as well as you said, um, the communication stuff. Because as it is right now, we have persons. I was actually in a one of the persons on my executive had an accident, and we waited with him until the ambulance reached. When the ambulance did reach, there was a driver and a next person, and the next person was just to sit down next to him in the back of the van. That person knew nothing about nothing. So it's a we have to train the personnel, and that's what we are missing. We don't have persons that are going into that field in terms of a technical person that is certified to do, as you said, resuscitation and all these things in an emergency situation. So they are trying to get a person. What we are trying to do now is we are trying to get a person from the scene to the hospital as soon as possible. Whereas what we can do is to provide some treatment at the scene as well as in the hospital, in the ambulance as well,
En route,
en
en route.
route to the
And
hospital.
those local medical centers, health centers should be better equipped. It should run 24 hours. You want to avoid overloading the main hospital. So if a person could get sufficient amount of treatment there, we can without having to go to the main hospital. They could be transferred if absolutely necessary, but it needs to be upgraded. The staffing needs to be upgraded. We have a lot of doctors are not getting hired in the country. They are frustrated, those who went into the medical field. Yes, we do have people outside the country who really wanted to help, but the government of Trinidad and Tobago is not engaging those who wants to help.
Yeah.
We
So
have people that are highly skilled.
yeah. So the issue is, one, they are not. We don't have the facilities to train persons, and two, it would seem that the government is unable to take on additional persons onto the state's payroll because of limited resources, and with reduced government revenue over the next few years. Um, it seems that they can't take on persons in large quantities in a number of ministries. So ideally, we may need, let's say, 300 extra doctors in Trinidad and Tobago, and we may need 1,000 extra nurses. But remember, you have to pay those persons every single month. And apparently, they have used the money to build billion-dollar hospitals that
Yeah,
are
administration building.
Ministry of Administration building, which which was built at 280 million, but we will end up spending $480 million over 15 years. They built a car park in the San Fernando General Hospital for 130 something $1 million, right? So is what they're doing with the money, and they're not investing in the human resources, right?
Yeah, but that is a silly excuse for them to put forward, because really those capital expenditure you're talking about should really come out of the PSIP budget.
Yeah, yeah,
The monies that are allocated to the Ministry of Health for Human Resource Development and so on, that comes out of the regular budget, not the PSIP.
yeah. So, but we asked my entire private members motion in the last parliamentary year was about human resources, and the
But Doc,
minister
I'm not sure if you're aware, but you would be aware that when the RHAs were formed and
yeah,
set up, that they were only hiring doctors, for example, on contract. Now, this government is clearly afraid that they're going to lose the next election. And they are going to spend the next 1 year putting things in place. And let me tell you what they're doing in the Ministry of Health right now. They are moving to offer permanent jobs to many of the doctors. I think they're targeting about 350 doctors in the RHA system to make
mhm,
permanent. But the criteria that they have put is one that is, to me, when I saw it, is not clear. So there is, I am suggesting, a lot of room for them to manipulate it. Because what they're going to do is to write individual letters of offers to the doctors to offer permanent positions in the RHAs. And I think if you're the shadow health minister, I think that's something that you need to follow up on and be very,
okay.
very
I will check out that.
vigilant.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, yeah.
apart from that, Doc, I want to mention something here. I was down at the Point Fortin Hospital recently, and I noticed, you could correct me if I'm wrong, the now you mentioned security at hospitals earlier, but I noticed there seems to be private security at the hospitals, and there were at almost every doorway on the ground floor. There were two security officers, and that I thought was strange. There were more security officers than nurses in that
Yeah.
hospital, and it
Well, I
appeared
mean,
to be private
yeah,
security. So that's another issue you need to look at. That's where the contracts and the what
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the money is being lost.
yeah.
And
So,
then
so
the
it's
other thing,
exactly,
the other thing
yeah,
that they're doing, and this is not just constrained to the Ministry of Health, but it's going on across the public sector, where, as you know, the government, there's a parallel system. So there's the regular public servants and their contractual employees. When those contracted employees contracts are coming to an end now, what they normally do, if the person is a good worker, whatever, they will just renew the contract and give them another offer for 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year contract, whatever. Now they're selectively advertising positions. So they are effectively weeding out the people from the public sector who they don't want. And
yeah,
again, I don't know why people are not going to take a good lawyer to deal with it, because if there's
well,
a policy to advertise positions and interview and all of those to fill positions. To me, it should be across the board.
Well, what happened is most of these doctors, when they sign a contract, they then sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they are under severe penalties if they speak out in opposition to in the public to many of the issues that they face. My three younger brothers are doctors. So I have one that works as a cardiologist in Mount Hope, one that works in internal medicine in Mount Hope, one that's specializing in University of New Mexico in the States, but he used to work in Mount Hope as well. So I am aware of many of the issues that they face, and doctors that may want to raise many issues with regards to standards in the hospital, with regards to supplies, with regards to equipment, with regards to security, with regards to clinical procedures and protocols. They can't say a thing because they are liable under their contract. So they what they have done is they have written in these NDAs into many of the contracts. So if you want the job, you have to sign that, and that's why many of them can't say a word. I myself in a privileged position whereby being a dentist and being a private dentist, I don't work in the state sector. I can say basically what I like within reason, without fear of repercussion, because I am my own boss. I don't rely on a salary from the state in order to support myself with regards to dentistry. So what has happened is many doctors, they set up anonymous emails addresses, and they send me stuff. Pharmacists send me stuff to my email address, and I get a lot of so-called whistleblowers that give me a lot of details. I try to verify a lot of these things before I bring it to the public domain. But yeah, persons are reaching out to me and giving me a lot of information. That's what's happening in the state sector.
Yeah,
But
that's
even if the doctors don't sign an NDA, they still, of course, know that the contract will come up for renewal sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
So that is
and
always hanging over your head.
we
yeah,
had
that,
a situation where a senior, very, very senior renal nephrology consultant lost his consultant position in a hospital. And when he asked, well, why am I not being renewed? He was given no real reason. Um, and, in his view, he felt it was political victimization because he had spoken out to colleagues about the state of conditions of the wards and the patients and how they were suffering. And he felt that because he had raised this alarm to his colleagues, he was not renewed his consultancy position, and
Yeah.
he had spoken to me about it. But that's a situation. People are being victimized at all levels. Once you in any way criticize the state and the state of affairs in whichever job that you are doing, and you're on contract, chances are your contract will not be renewed. And
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago, wake up, please. You do not have to live under conditions like this. And that's the appeal we are making to citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. It's total fear of criminals, fear of the government. You know, we really one constituents. When I was doing my walkabouts, I try to do walkabouts twice a week now, as we are in an election year. And one elderly woman told me, and um, she is not a UNC supporter, right? She told me she is traditionally a PNM supporter, and she told me we have lost the love in Trinidad and Tobago. She said we lost the love, and that's what we're going through right now.
Doc, so I just wanted to emphasize this again. This weeding out and putting their trusted soldiers in strategic places across the public sector is going to continue and be ramped up in the next few months. So it's
Yeah,
something I think the UNC should probably, if possible at all, have a set of lawyers on standby to assist persons, because a lot of people just take the licks and go home quietly, yeah?
yeah,
Because I tell you from experience, fighting the state is not an easy thing. It
yeah.
takes
So
belly to fight the state. And a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of people take the easy way out. They just take their blows and go home.
yeah. And you have to stick to your guns and be secure in your convictions when you are criticizing them, because they are extremely vindictive government. Um, and most persons, I'll make a mention that, for example, the Londonville Presbyterian School, which we spoke about earlier, I had a meeting and I asked the head of the PTA at that time to come and give his views about what was happening, because he had children at the school and they were being displaced. So they have to drive from Londonville to Juneham, which is quite a distance, just to go to that school, because that is the school that he wanted his children to be at. And we were there and we were waiting for him at the meeting, and we had to bring on someone else to speak because he never showed up. And when I asked him, he said, "I'm sorry, I just can't do that. I'm afraid I lose my job." And that's what citizens face right now in Trinidad and Tobago. They are afraid of victimization, and the just the just the evil nature of this government and the ones that are in the higher positions in government.
Well, you got little 50 cents hitman who can come and do a job on you, So they you have to also take that into consideration. We have not much of a defense. We don't have much of a security, so I it's clearly understood, but we have to unite somehow and deal with this situation. We can't fight this alone. We have to understand. We do have to unite. Go ahead, John. Arjun.
Yeah, Gary, you broke up there. Sorry.
Now, I was saying you can go ahead and ask any other questions that you have.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
okay for
So,
now.
yeah. So, Trini, if you have anything, jump in. Yeah. So, we, like I said, we have to unite. We have to work together to protect each other. It's a matter. I always see it as a matter of life and death situation because it's clearly obvious. You could get victimized, you could get assassinated, you could get robbed in your own house. Your wife and daughters can get raped in front of your face. These criminals are operating without fear. They don't even fear the police, and the government continue to maintain their stance on citizens defending themselves, and they have tried to flip this stand your ground legislation and our policy and how we see things for citizens to have the rights to defend themselves. Basically, where the police, you cannot rely on the police. The government does not supply the police with enough resources to assist us in these times. Times have changed. It has become very dangerous. The world has become a very dangerous place. It's not only Trinidad and Tobago. We understand that, but it's we lagging on our management and our security, with the border resource and everything else. So, Doc, I do want to thank you for taking the time. Deeply appreciated you taking the time after a lengthy budget debate. I know you have a lot going on in your community. This channel is open to you, in a moment's notice. If you're on the field and you want to broadcast something, bring it to the attention because we have to show the people. We can't just tell them. We have to physically show them.
Yeah.
If you got flooding going on, I know, Karen, you're in the midst of the flood zone there. I have discussed with the leader plans about how dealing with the water situation, rerouting the water, the retention, and the treatment, all these things. A lot of things I discussed at length, and we need to build on these things. We can control quite a bit of that flooding if we handle that Caron River and the irrigation and different things properly with water storage and stuff like that. We can really do that. Is This government really has not done anything. The PNM hasn't really done anything really substantial. So these are things that we are discussing, and I'm sure some of it are brought to your attention. But I want to keep the conversation going between you and the rest of your colleagues, that we keep our population informed and aware and keep it in their minds what our plan of action is. They must understand clearly. We got to keep singing it. So I do thank you for taking the time to join us. Any last words you would like to say?
Yeah, Gary, I thank you so much for the human service you're doing. I know it must take a lot, and the commitment that you have to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and as well as those that joined us here tonight. We truly appreciate that the work you're doing in a foreign country, and the fact that you keep us in your thoughts and in your mind and in your heart. And I would tell you to continue doing your very, very good work. We appreciate it. We acknowledge the work that you're doing, and we do commend you. And continue your great effort. And yeah, we will continue our work on this side as well. And we need to change the government in 2025 or whenever that general election is called. And my focus, as well as my colleagues' focus, is to get Kamala Prasad-Bissessar back for her second term as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And I thank you so very much for having me here tonight. It was truly a pleasure. And anytime in the future you all would like me to come back on, I won't hesitate once, time permitting, and, my schedule isn't too packed. I'll be willing to come back on.
Like I said, I'm available to you. This channel is available at a moment's notice. Even if you have to come in for 10 minutes just to bring an issue, that's
Yeah,
fine with us. You want to bring something to the public's population attention. You want to point something out. You want to, we have to rebut this government on what they're doing and their lies and misinformation. We have to continue doing that. So I want to thank you and thank our listeners for joining us, and those who may view this program after today. Like, we are here to educate, inform, and engage you in participating in rebuilding Trinidad and Tobago into a place that all of us want. We want to improve this level of service delivery, the medical, the security. This is our home. A lot of us are staying outside. They reiterate this to me that they're not coming back to Trinidad because of the security issues. Two major things that we have is the security issue and the healthcare, which is a serious concern. What's taking place there is keeping our people outside. We have, as you know, a lot of professional people who could help us. I want to make this platform available and to kind of bridge with those of us outside and with our people on the ground that's working to try to make a difference. We must be inclusive. This is an inclusive platform. So thank you very much, Doc. And with that, I will say good night to our listening audience.
thank you very much.
Good night, all.
Good night, gentlemen.